Hello guys, and you're welcome to our level design course. In this course, we're going to learn how to build level designs for platformer games, especially 2D side-scrolling platformer games. We're making that specific because there are lots of other game formats. We have the top-down, we have the isometric, but we're just going to focus on 2D side-scrolling platformer games. And these steps are not written on stone. We can always change these steps and kind of like twist them to achieve the same aim. Now, I call this the master theory because I kind of like came up with this and put them all together. Now, some elements don't contain level design elements, but they're quite as important as other elements. Now, they're much more than this, and you can actually take fewer than that, but it depends on what you feel is important at that point. So right now, I first begin with the idea, right? So you have to know like what kind of game we are creating, right? So this time around, we said we're building a 2D platformer side-scrolling game. You could have a top-down isometric game. So it's really specific, and it's really important to specify what kind of game you're building, such that you could just tell your design team and your focus. Now, who is your target audience? Like, is this for kids? Is this for adults? Is it an advanced game? Is it a physics game? Like, who is your target audience? That's also important. Are you targeting people between the ages of say 3 to 5, or are you targeting people between the age of 10 to 18? Are they male? Are they female? Are they teenagers? So you need to know what content and who your target audience is, and that way you can build related content that will fit in that target audience. So you just know who you're building your game for, and then you can actually express that through the level design. Also, what kind of feelings do you want the player to experience? Do you want the player to have like a sad, kind of like moody feeling, or you want to elevate them and make them happy? This is important because you could add things like the colors you could use to show mood and expression. Also, if it's like for a horror game, you want to have like dark, muted colors, and also to include the kind of music. So you don't want to have happy music with some green island for some happy games, and then you could have some kind of like dark-ish kind of like music with keys and pianos for dark games. Now, another very important thing is the story. Like, your story tells you everything about your game, including your level design. Like, basically, when you know the story of your game, you actually know where the player is. You don't actually know where your player is going. You know what stage your player is. You know what kind of characters your players have. You can specify the enemies. You can specify the kind of collectibles if you have a good story. And basically, if you're a level designer, you most likely work with a team of artists and story writers, animators, and designers. So you always have to look at the story and understand, if your director tells you, hey, you know what, the player is in a market scene and the market is like upside down and all that, you know that you're going to design a level that has a market, and you can actually know what elements you place in your story. Your story is also going to tell you your main character, who how the enemies are, and all that stuff. So you can work with your team. And then there's also the idea cleanup. Now, this is not specific to level designers, but level designers can also limit the ideas you have. If it's too overambitious, if it's going to be expensive, it's going to be technically impossible, you can always specify these things. Another thing to actually look at is whether you can fund the idea. If it's going to be expensive, do you need extra help? If you look at your team and understand if your team has designers or artists and all that, or you need to hire external artists, and you could actually go to sites like Kickstarter or Indiegogo to actually get external help from fundings to support your project. Also, another key important feature is to look at what tools we're going to be using. Like, for instance, we're going to be using Unity. And then I'll show you also how to use Construct in the course, and also what art tools you're going to be using. You can use your classic pen and paper, or pencil and paper, or you can use Photoshop, any of those modern tools you feel you're comfortable with. And then we can actually look at the engine, whether the engine is going to use extensions or not. But again, some of these are not really based for level design only. So another key thing is the rules for the game. If you have a specific set of rules, you can actually kind of like stay to that boundary, and then you don't overshoot things. For instance, you can say your level is going to have a secret room or sub levels within that same level, and there will be no more than 5 puzzles for each levels, and no more than 3 puzzles for a sub level. right? So basically you have a level, and within your level you could have like a secret room, so you could just specify these things automatically. Like in each level you're gonna have just 2 secret rooms, and that's it, your entire game. Everybody knows you're gonna have 2 secret rooms, maybe maximum of 3, but by defining these things it's going to add to the experience, right? And also how to access those rooms. Are those rooms going to be kind of like available? Are they going to be hidden? Do you need to break things to access those rooms, or is there going to be like a sound that's going to be you're going to hear to actually know that there's a secret there? So all these have to be like specified. Now another very important thing, now we're in the level design proper, is the name of your level. If you can name your level and give your level a name, and you actually tell your team, hey, this is the name of my level, right? Let's say I call my level Floating City or Rusted Pipes or Fire Bath. It should automatically kind of like give you ideas of what you expect to see in that level, right? If I say Chilly Winds, you're gonna have these winds that just kind of like randomly appear and kind of like hurt the player or some kind of thing like that. So it'll give you an idea when you actually have the name of your level. It'll specify your location, and it'll also give you ideas of what props you could have to place in those levels to push your level and bring it out. So once you have your level name and you have an idea of what your level is can be like, it's kind of like nice to prototype your level. Now by prototyping, you're not using any fancy artwork. You just want to know where the player is going to be jumping, where the player is going to be landing, what scenes the player is going to be transitioning, where you're going to place your enemies, where you're going to place your switches, and what transitions you're going to have in your level, right? So these things are going to be like always changing, because you're going to submit that to your art director. If you don't have an art director or you're an indie solo game developer, you can always look at it later on and say, hey, I don't want this, and you can totally change it. That's totally fine. And now we can jump to the puzzle design. Now for the prototype, you can also mix that with the puzzle design as well. So for a puzzle design, you could use switches, you could use pushable platforms, you could use gravity zones, you could use a lot of mechanics that can allow you to jump around. You could use keys, you could use doors, you could use chests, all to design your level. It's very important to play test your level, because if it's too difficult or it's too challenging, especially in the initial stages, people are not going to like it. So you can actually listen to feedback from other people such that they can tell you what you can improve, what you can use to improve in your level. If you have a general feedback from people of different calibers and types, and they actually play your level and tell you it's fine, and they're not trying to to take a piss, you actually understand that your level is actually good, and you can leave it that way. But once you have a few complaints, trust me, eventually when you ship your game and your level design is bad, it's going to just stick to your game, and that's not going to be a nice thing to do. So make sure you listen to the players, people who play testing levels. It could be yourself later on. Once you actually doubt it, then it's not really that smooth. But sometimes people test it and then they could enjoy the experience they have with the level, and they'll be happy after that as well. And then finally, after designing your switches, puzzles, keys, chests, doors, you've play tested your level, finally it's time to polish your level. Only polish your level after you're satisfied with the prototype and it's good to go and you have a green light. Always do that before you jump into the polishing stage. And here, this is where you could add post-processing effects, you could add background arts, you could add some music to make it more vibrant. You could even use color palettes to specifically push a certain mood. That's the polish. That's that game feel you want to have. Again, if you're an indie dev, you might not really go all out and kind of like do this like AAA companies. But hey, even some cool, awesome indie games like Hollow Knight, they actually drop that level of polish in those games. So that's going to be our rough theory. And in our next lesson, we're going to jump into our prototype stages, and I'll show you how I kind of like build prototypes, and you can follow along, build the same prototypes, and I'll do a lot of explaining on how I do what I do. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.